everybody, I'm back with Josh and we're going to do a little talk about the shining sun, even though it's nighttime at the moment. It's quite weird that the evenings are drawing in. And I've had a lot of people asking me about the sun because I did a few sun shows and about what's this solar minimum is and what does Gurdjieff mean by about the sun. And I've been doing shows about how to become a solar person. So I'm going to hand over to Josh. Josh Denny's with me again today. He's going to explain, because you recently did an article about sun power. So maybe you could explain your article about.
Yeah, well, I mean, like like you say, I mean, in the Gurdjieff teaching in the Fourth Way, there's a whole kind of like cosmology there, like about the, the cosmos and the different sort of worlds, or as they say, cosmos is the composed reality, and the kind of like the different laws that these different sort of worlds are under. So Gurdjieff kind of says that us as human beings, as man, like he says, we have three brains. We're three-brained creatures, like a thinking brain, a feeling brain, and a sensing brain. So he says that kind of human nature that we have sort of gives us access to multiple worlds. Like we have a vaster range of kind of experience that's open to us than, say, like animals, or what he calls one-brained and two-brained beings. So when he's talking about the kind of the different worlds that we can experience, or kind of like our consciousness can be centered in, like he talks of the general physical world, which he, like in terms of the numbers of laws, he says that's kind of like world 48. So that's kind of like what he says, like the world of the earth, and it's also what he kind of links to the world of what he says the personality, which again in the kind of the teaching, that's kind of like our sort of main means of, you could say, thought, or like cognition. Is the kind of the main means or apparatus that we use to sort of look around the world and understand it. So like the apparatus of the world, like world 48 or personality, gives us a means of dealing with the general physical world, interacting with other people, and like organizing our sort of physical lives. It helps us deal with the material world. Like we can use the personality and that sort of cognition to like develop science and things like that, or medicine. So it has a practical utility, a practical application. But he says that kind of mind, let's say of the personality, it's only suited to that world. That's that's the world that it's intended to deal with. And in terms of like our sort of spiritual evolution or development through like the process of the work, again he says we can sort of gain access to some of these higher worlds above the world 48 or the earthly world. And yes, we can get access to experiences of those higher worlds, and kind of can develop the sides of our nature that are suited to dealing with those, those higher worlds. So that's like part of the work. So above the sort of general world of world 48 or the earth or the personality is the world of the planets. That's kind of the next world above that. And, in terms of the numbers of the laws, it's world 24. So again, that sort of indicates that it's got less, laws than that operate in that world. Less limitations, you could say. It's a more dynamic and sort of expansive world, more possibilities. And in the terminology of the work, that sort of planetary world 48, is described as the kind of the world of our essence. So again, as a human being who incarnates into the world, we all are evidently members of the human species. So we're all members of the collective human essence. But obviously, we all have an individual or an individuated sort of version of that human essence. But he kind of says that sort of essence, again, he puts it on the level of the planets. He kind of says that it's above the kind of our physical nature. It's not of the nature of our physical bodies, our essence. And so it has a different nature and has different laws that kind of apply to it. It kind of sort of suggests that our essence is pre-incarnate. Like that, our own individual essence kind of exists prior to our sort of physical incarnation on the earth. So if through work on ourselves we develop like the kind of consciousness of the essence, or the sort of, like we say, the apparatus or the cognition that goes along with the essence, then we can gain experience of what he calls then the world of the essence, or the world of the planets. Now, in some of his terminology and other terminologies, that's also sort of equated with the astral, the astral world, and then, the supposed astral body that we can develop as a means to navigate that world. And Gurdjieff talks about the kind of astral body in his own terms as the sort of Kesdjan body in Beelzebub's Tales. So again, he says every human is born with an essence, obviously, and so they're born with the kind of possibility to develop their, let's say, astral body or Kelsian body. We're all born with some material of the planetary or astral world, the world of the essence, and so we all exist in both the physical world and the world of the essence simultaneously. But of course, our subjective consciousness can be centered, or aware of more one or other of those worlds more dominantly. Like my conscious might be more focused in the personality of the physical world, in which case that's, the world that I'll be centered in, and that's what my experience will consist of, the kind of physical world, and that's the kind of thinking that I will have. My perspective on life and other people and reality will be based in the kind of physical thinking.
But would that be your personality? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's what he calls, world personality operates according to him on like the laws of World 48. That's the kind of the world of personality, and the world of like the essence.
And then the world I get confused with is it the personality that's helping to develop the astral body, or is it just the essence?
Well, again, according to his teaching, that when we incarnate, like when we're born, again, according to his teaching, man is born half-baked. We're not born fully developed, and so we need to grow and develop. And so according to that sort of way of looking at it, our essence is that we, let's say that we're born with, is of a certain level of development. Again, it's kind of like he says, sort of at the level of a child, a very young child. So yeah, there's some kind of work that needs to be done to develop our essence, or the consciousness of our essence, and that work involves the use of the personality. Like, you could say that a higher world is supported to some extent by a lower world. Like the second story of my house, I have to have a first story for it to be built on top of, to sit on. So if that first story is kind of in disarray, not working properly, then yeah, that's gonna cause problems with the second story. So he kind of says that we need our personality, again, the general sort of rationality, the general kind of mind that we use to navigate the world. We need to have that in a fairly decent order in order to engage in, you could say, spirituality or spiritual study. Like he would say, a basic level of like human functionality, in mind and body is needed to take on the spiritual, quest, the spiritual path. He often says that there's much more demands made on a person who wishes to go down the spiritual route than the general. There's much more demands made on them than the person who just wants to live a normal materialistic life. Even just in the material world, we know the kind of, the problems that can arise, like dealing with other people and just the hazard and uncertainty of the physical world. Things can go wrong. So yeah, he just kind of advises that you need to have a basic sort of, you could say, common sense, something like that, through which to begin your search from. If he would say that a person needs to be able to live in the physical world, and sometimes he exaggerates, saying you need to be able to look after 10 people, and provide for them in the physical world if you think you're going to have any chance of like progressing spiritually. So again, he's just making that point that a basic sort of, you could say, common sense or basic level of worldly sort of knowledge and ability is required, because like obviously through our interactions with people and the physical world, that's where we gain most of our material from. Like we learn about spiritual traditions through reading books and stuff, so that's all material that's based in the physical world. I mean, it may be material that talks about higher worlds, but we're still receiving it or interacting with it through our personality. So we need the personality to provide just like raw data that we can possibly transform, for like the development of our essence. So yeah, we use our personality to help us develop our essence, just as we use our physical body. Like when he talks about the process of developing or coating the higher bodies, he says that most of the material for that, or the energy, comes through our physical body, like our organic nature. Like he says, a significant portion of the material that forms that Kelsian body is made of the physical nature. It's made of energies that the physical body transforms and has access to. So again, it means that there's not like a set boundary between, say, the Kelsian world and the physical world, like a wall. They interpermeate each other, and they have to be able to exchange substances. So that means there has to be a common nature between the astral body and the physical body in order for them to be able to exchange substances or be able to use, like he talks about the breath, say, like conscious breath is one means of helping develop your Christian body. So that means that through the physical breathing process, there is also something that we take in that's of the Christian nature. He says that physical air contains higher elements. So they're like elements, you could say, of the Christian body or Christian nature, but we receive them, some of them, through our physical body. It's just like air can permeate water, though they're different, like a different substance or a different state of matter, but the fire can permeate the course. So we are, like, again, receiving sort of Christian material or essence material even through our just our general day-to-day physical experience. But
when
again,
you first said about the physical body, I'm like, oh no, but my physical body is quite weak quite a lot, and we have our aches and pains. Is that deterring us from it? But now you've said about the exercises, because I've always been quite trying to encourage people to go and do Gurdjieff's exercises. So, do a lot of the breathing exercises. Let's breathe in better air.
Yeah.
Do the I am. So that's the exercises you mean of using that helps the physical body.
Yeah. And so it's like you can. He says that all the time that the physical body is working, a certain amount of what the physical body does, say a certain amount of the substances that it creates or transforms, a certain amount that just goes to sustain the physical body, just to keep it ticking over. But he says there is also a certain, you could say, surplus there that can be used for higher work. There's some substances that the body transforms or liberates that are compatible with the Christian body. And that's how, like, you say through a person's work, which utilizes your body, like through breathing and inner work with sensation, that's all you could say focused on your organic nature. But by working with that, it says that, like it can liberate energy or materials that are compatible with your Christian body or higher nature. So I'm just saying that the Christian body, it has to share a certain amount of similarities with the physical body in order for them to be able to exchange or substances or So that Christian body, he says, is at the level of the planets then, which again is like this world above the general world of our personality and the general world of our experience, or he calls it the astral world. And again, so through work, our consciousness can kind of shift to that sort of side of our nature. If our consciousness kind of shifts, then naturally, well, that'll have that'll affect our experience of the world and the way we see things. So sort of above that sort of Christian world, then that's the next world, is the world of the sun. Again, he kind of uses the sort of, what would you call it, the kind of like astrological or astronomy, like the structure of the universe in terms of like planets, and then you could say like galaxies, universe. He uses that structure to indicate different worlds, like different cosmoses,
Because the sun is even less laws, isn't it?
Are you still there?
Oh, you suddenly froze just as I said that question.
Sorry, yeah, I was talking and then I realised that you weren't moving, and so I don't know whether I've carried on talking.
All right, no, you was talking here, and then as I asked a question, I went, so it's the sun, lesser laws, and then you froze.
Right.
So I think I got what you were saying. I could hear everything you were saying, so that should have recorded.
Yeah, I was just saying above the Kesdin world, then, or the world of the planets, is like the solar world. And Gurdjieff kind of uses the sort of structure of the universe in terms of like planets and galaxies, stars and galaxies, as a way to look at that, the nature of man, saying that we have, that man has access to different worlds, or that reality is composed of different worlds. So again, when he talks about the world of the planets as being the Kesdin world, he's not just strictly talking about the world of the planets as we can perceive it through the physical senses. What we kind of perceive of the world of the planets through the physical senses is a kind of, you could say it's a kind of reflection of the world of the planets, or the world of the essence, or the astral world. It's a reflection of that in the world of the senses, or in the earthly world, or the world of the personality. So you may have heard of it in some different traditions. They often speak about the natural world, including then, the world of the planets, the physical world, as a kind of symbol, or like expression of say, than the world of the spirit, higher world. So again, when he's talking about the Kelsian world as the world of the planets, he doesn't mean strictly what we tend to think of as the world of the planets. And he kind of highlights this by saying that sort of everything, really, he says, in the world or in the universe is living. He kind of says everything, in a sense, is organic. But they're just different, you could say, levels of life. Even what we look at as inert matter, you could say is a form of life or a form of consciousness in his kind of way of looking at things. So he says that the planets are kind of being. I mean, he sort of relates the level of the planets to kind of the level of the angels. He says that a planet, or back in the day they talked about gods, but they're a level of being. You could say a level of life, but obviously they're a level of being and life above that of organic life. The life that we know that exists on the Earth, then,
including our own planet. Our planet's a being.
Yeah, exactly. So he says that human life on the Earth, I think he says that it serves as it's the Earth's kind of means of perception. Like, we're like the eyes and the nose, the ears, we're its means of experience. Like life on Earth, he says, forms a kind of a sensitive layer, like our skin on our bodies. It's a sensitive layer through which we can detect the outer world and experience it and receive, impressions. So yeah, he says that we kind of exist on or a part of the being of the of the Earth. So again, that's to say that those planets and like the sun, they have a different reality than the one that we're privy to in terms of our senses. If I'm just looking at the sun through a telescope, then I'm only seeing, you could say, one side of the sun. I'm just seeing its reflection in the physical world. I'm seeing a reflection of the solar world as expressed or apparent at the world of the Earth or the world of personality. So, like in terms of his theory of the cosmos, he says that life on Earth begins from the sun, from our sun. He says that there's a kind of, using the law of the octave, law of 7, he says there's a kind of a shock, at the level of our sun. And in order for the process to continue, something needs to be done. And he says that life serves as a means to fill that sort of gap or that shock. So in a way, he says that life on Earth begins from the sun. Like the sun has an active role in, you could say, creating life on Earth. And why it's doing that is in accordance, you could say, with the purpose that's been given to it from above, in terms of carrying on the evolution of the cosmos or life. Then. So that's almost like saying that. I think you've probably heard the saying that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yes.
Something that kind of suggests that everything under the sun kind of conforms, you could say, to the laws of the sun. Just like in terms of the solar system, all the planets and everything, they're all, they all conform to the law of the sun in terms of gravity. Everything in the solar system is subject to the gravity of the sun. So it's kind of like saying that, I mean, it's a strange way of putting it, but it's like the consciousness that man has access to, that gives him an experience of the world, comes from the sun. Like man's consciousness is kind of borrowed from that of the sun. Or all life, you could say, that the awareness that physical life has access to comes from the level of the sun. And I've also heard it said that it's like what we experience of our physical life is kind of, the physical world, our daily life is kind of almost like a dream. It's kind of a thought of the sun. So it's another way of putting it. But yeah, so in terms of like developing our consciousness, again, there are all these different exercises and things that we can do to try to raise our consciousness. And that's like, that's said to be a means of coming under the higher laws. Like we can liberate ourselves from some of these lesser laws than all the laws that are to do with our physical nature or personality. And we can shift, our center of consciousness or being such that we come under these higher laws, and of course our experience will be different. And in terms of the sun, like there are lots of, I mean, you've probably heard of sun gazing. That's another thing that people do.
I was going to bring that up because I do a lot of that in the mornings, and Gurdjieff himself talks about it. In his book, All and Everything, Beelzebub's getting Hussein to look at the sun just as it's rising.
Yeah.
One of the few safe times to be able to look at the sun and to take in the first vibrations and energetic rays of the sun coming towards you. Very powerful, and at sunset. Don't do it at midday though.
No, I wouldn't advise it. But I think most people know that the sun, just being in the sun, especially if we're in a climate where we don't get the sun all the time, it's obvious that when the sun's out, it changes people's emotions. Like just even the feeling of the warmth of it on your skin and stuff, you could say that it provides a kind of nurturing or, positive energy, positive emanation, positive vibration, So again, we tend to be just affected by that subconsciously. But again, if we make the effort, then to I'm going to make the effort to put the intention out there that I want to receive some more of the emanation of the sun, or some of the food that it's putting out there, then you can do that. You can do what you're saying. You could look at it, or you could just go out on a sunny day and look at the light that you're seeing that's reflecting off all the forms, and you can literally try to get a sense of that light itself, or like you could say, feed on that light or contact it. Like you can evoke, you can use the light, like looking at the light. Again, people have used it in hypnosis and stuff, like looking at a candle and things like that. You can use light to evoke certain states of consciousness, like and often reflection, like on the surface of water, or like the refraction of light on a crystal or something like that. Okay, people have used that for God knows how long, probably since forever. Like that quality of brilliance. There's a kind of subtle there's a subtle sensation in that, and that's why you can use it for like hypnosis and to change your state of consciousness. So you can go out and like make the intention to try to, again, it's hard to describe it, but you want to draw your attention to the light, like the quality of light itself, rather than just all the forms that are lit up by it. Or another one is just
go on,
sorry.
The other one is...
Or another one is you can go out, or even if you're not out, just like now, I could put my attention, so to speak, towards where the sun, like I can just say, I want to become aware of the sun now, and just put your feelers out, so to speak. And you might be able to detect that you can sense it at a subtle level. You can kind of almost, in a sense, know where it is at any time, just using your subtle senses. It's like there's a presence there, the solar presence is there all the time. And if you draw your attention to it, you can connect with it.
Because that's really, it's breaking that programming of thinking the sun's not around when it's nighttime. The sun's always around. It's just on a different part of the planet.
Exactly.
But so we should, as you say, still be able to sense it and know where it is.
I'm just saying you can choose to do that. You can tap into the kind of, like you're saying, it's shining all the time. And like they say in science that the photons or whatever that come out of it, or like neutrinos, they pass through everything. Like they're some of the smallest or most kind of active particles. So in that sense, you're being bombarded. It doesn't matter, like you say, if you're in the dark or not. Like whether you're directly in the sun or not probably makes, like, I don't know, a small percentage of difference in terms of like the amount of, like, I don't know, solar radiation that you're exposed to, because it's penetrating right through the earth anyway. So whichever side you're on probably makes not much difference. But you can, just saying that you can make that effort to connect to it as a kind of, like they would probably do in the ancient times. They looked at the sun and stuff, and it was just evident to them, like in their direct experience, that it was a being, that it was alive, just as it's evident when you look at a person, regardless of whether you're talking to them. You recognize the quality of life in them. They don't just appear you don't have to like go up to the person and check if they're moving to tell whether there's life there. You know that there's a difference between a person and a stone just by looking at them. So I think to the ancients, it was kind of that way. It was obvious to them that the planets were alive, because they felt a living presence, living connection with them. You see what I mean? So again, in our sort of more materialistic, world, we come to just look at everything as, like object, or if it's not like, doesn't appear to be moving around or interacting with us like a normal form of life, like a person or an animal, we say, well, it's inert, or it's dead or whatever.
No.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, if a person doesn't have that kind of sense of the livingness of creation, then you can investigate that yourself, or just like what you said, you can increase your sense of contact with the sun, and it's literally there. You can feel it as a kind of as a sort of presence, and if you direct your attention to it, you can kind of see it as it's like the source of your consciousness. Like you can imagine the light shines out from the sun, and it kind of shines on and through all the forms of life on Earth. So it's kind of like, in a way, like the brains of living animals, they serve as like a prism, right? They can receive this kind of light of the sun, you could say the consciousness of the sun. And that's what animates them. See what I mean? That's where their consciousness and their awareness comes from. And the kind of the earth, which is regarded as mother, Mother Earth, she kind of provides the material for the bodies of living organisms. And the sun is kind of the masculine, the active one in that relationship, like the female earth and the father sun. And through their interaction, like the child of life, conscious life, can be born. So yeah, there's work that we can do to become sensitive to the kind of solar emanation, like Gurdjieff talks about it as a kind of an emanation coming from the suns and even from the source.
We've got 1 minute left, less than a minute.
Okay.
I just wanted to warn you now.
No, thanks. Yeah, he says that the physical suns, they're kind of like a step down from the source. Like the source, you could say, emanates to the suns, and then they serve as another means of emanating or passing on that divine emanation to the lower levels. So yeah, the sun, our sun, can be a means for us to connect to the levels above, and it's definitely a means for feeding our Kesdjan, our planetary nature, our subtle nature. You can use light or the quality of light or the sun to evoke some like these subtle states and to develop your sort of Kesdjan body or your essence. I think
Brilliant.
the clock's going to I think the clock's going to go there.
It could just cut out, but what I'll do is I'll put a link to your website at the bottom so that people can